So my question to you was frivolous to start with. Would you accept Hitler's endorsement for a candidate? And you said absolutely. We didn't dispute it. And then you said, but he's dead. So then I said, well, what about Kim Jong-un or President Xi or Vladimir Putin or the Ayatollah Khomeini? I mean, at what point do these endorsements, if you accept them proudly, become actually disgraceful slurs on your own integrity?
You might have already forgotten about this by now, but last weekend, liberals were absolutely running in circles celebrating because Dick Cheney came out and endorsed Kamala Harris, and they were saying things like, Dick Cheney is a patriot. Dick Cheney put his country above his party. What an amazing guy. Seemingly forgetting that Dick Cheney was, of course, one of the chief architects of the Iraq War. And before you want to say he had some type of ideological transformation, still to this day defends that decision. Take a listen.
It's the Middle East, and stuff happens in the Middle East. You know it. You've covered it for years. But you cannot, I don't think you can make a case that the world would be better off today if Saddam Hussein were still in power.
So no regrets about Iraq?
I think we made exactly the right decisions.
Now, that's bad enough in its own because most normal Americans, whether they're Democrat or Republican, are absolutely mortified by what our country did with the Iraq War. And of course, to have him going out there still defending it and at the same time endorsing Kamala Harris really tells you a lot, right? They are the ticket of the neocons. But the added level of irony is, of course, the fact that many of your prominent liberal figures in the media today got their start literally criticizing the Bush administration for the invasion of Iraq, and now you can see they turned into the biggest neocons of all time. But hilariously, none other than our good old friend Destiny, okay? He is back. Destiny came back on Piers Morgan and tried to defend the fact that Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. And folks, let me just spoil it right now. It did not go well for him. This was an embarrassing performance, so take a listen.
Let's talk about different standards, because I found it fascinating, Destiny, over the weekend, that out of nowhere, Dick Cheney, who was named Darth Cheney after Darth Vader by Democrats for 20 years, he was to them the evil personification, the villain figure of all conservative ills in America. The guy who took America into the illegal war in Iraq, who trampled over human rights left, right, and center.
Right.
And yet suddenly he pops up because he doesn't like Donald Trump and says, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. And rather than renounce that endorsement with great speed, which is what she should have done if she had any principles, she issued a statement saying, I'm proud to receive Dick Cheney's endorsement. What happened to the 24 years of Dick Cheney's the most, according to Joe Biden in 2008, the most dangerous vice president in the history of the United States, is what he said about Dick Cheney. And here's his own vice president saying how proud she is to get that endorsement. Do you feel a sense of pride?
Endorsements are one way. He endorsed her. I mean, it represents some segment of the Republican Party that's obviously dissatisfied with trying to re-elect a traitor, an insurrectionist.
Would you be proud if Dick Cheney endorsed you?
For running for president, you take any endorsement you can get, of course.
Really?
Just because somebody endorses you.
Whoa. You take any endorsement if you can get? Well, I would say something, but Piers Morgan's about to say it for me, so take a listen.
Just because somebody endorses you doesn't mean that you support their beliefs.
You take any endorsement you can get. So if Adolf Hitler decides to offer an endorsement, you would accept it.
A vote is a vote. Just because somebody endorses you doesn't mean that you have to... What does it mean to reject an endorsement?
You literally take an endorsement from Adolf Hitler to win power?
Well, right now I wouldn't, because Hitler's dead. So I don't know what is the point. Do you have to go around and try to disavow different segments of voters that are voting for? This is such a nonsense question.
It's actually a very good question. It's a very good question.
Absolutely not.
But I'm going to bring in a living figure. If Kim Jong-un decided to offer an endorsement to Kamala Harris, should she accept it or not?
When you say accept an endorsement, should she have a formal ceremony celebrating it?
If Kim Jong-un today said, I endorse from North Korea Kamala Harris to be president of the United States, would you think she should accept that?
Tell me what you mean when you say accept it. Should she tell him no, don't vote for me?
Hold on. Destiny. I get what Destiny is saying, is that Well, what is she supposed to say? Oh, well, you know, Dick Cheney endorsed me, whatever. The difference is we're about to bring the receipts here in a second. This was not a story of, oh, Dick Cheney endorsed me, I guess I'll just brush it off, not really say anything, or even reject the endorsement. No, absolutely not. That is not what she did. And like I said, we'll provide the receipts here in a second, but first I want you to be clear and understand what Destiny is saying so we can emphatically fact check him on this.
With Dick Cheney, she should have a statement saying how proud she was that he endorsed her. And that staggered me, given what a hate figure Cheney has been for 3 decades or more to liberals, progressive liberals. Here's one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive liberal Democrat nominee in American presidential history, saying how proud she is that Dick Cheney endorsed her. So my question to you was frivolous to start with. Would you accept Hitler's endorsement for a candidate? And you said, absolutely. We didn't dispute it. And then you said, but he's dead. So then I said, well, what about Kim Jong-un or President Xi or Vladimir Putin or the Ayatollah Khomeini? I mean, at what point do these endorsements, if you accept them proudly, become actually disgraceful slurs on your own integrity?
This is a nonsense question. And I remember back in 2008, I watched Ron Paul get hit with the same question. When I was a young college kid, I used to be a libertarian. I think it was some KKK organization or something that came out. They supported Ron Paul, and people were saying, Ron Paul, do you disavow the endorsement from the KKK leader? And Ron Paul said, you know what? If people want to vote for me, that's fine. I'm not going to tell people not to vote for me. Just because somebody endorses me doesn't mean that I support all the views of that person. You would agree with...
Okay. But here is the difference, Destiny. Kamala Harris said a lot more than that. Okay, she did not just say, okay, well, if Dick Cheney wants to vote for me, he has the freedom to do so. Now we're going to bring the receipts. This is how Kamala Harris accepted the endorsement of Dick Cheney, and compare that to what Destiny is saying, because Destiny is just basically brushing it off like, well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, it's politics. No. She was very proud of receiving the Dick Cheney endorsement. She even did a whole video about it. Take a look.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that
I'm honored to have their endorsement. Okay, first of all, let's just stop there before we play the rest of the video here. That's different even from Ron Paul saying, if the KKK wants to vote for me, I guess they can do that. No. She, in her own words, is honored to have the endorsement of the war criminal. Okay? So there's no like ambiguity here. She said that pretty clearly, but take a listen to more.
What they both, as leaders who are well respected,
they are well respected. She's honored to have it, and it's well respected. Okay, let's rewind and watch it in full. I know I keep interrupting this.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans. And this
is true. In her eyes, we need to go back to a uniparty that is invading and bombing the Middle East, okay? Where both the Democrats and Republicans agree on this. That's what this means when you're accepting an endorsement from Dick Cheney. But
stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like the folks I was just talking with, it really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
Just to be clear, folks, this is far from, I don't know, the Ron Paul statement back in 2008, okay? She said, let's recap there. She is honored to have their endorsement of the Cheneys. She says they are well respected, and she even goes so far as to say she shares more in common with them than what separates them. Of course, we're talking about the war criminal who invaded Iraq, okay? Then compare that with what Destiny is trying to say. Oh, well, you know, what is she supposed to do? It's politics. Why should she reject the endorsement? That's different from rejecting the endorsement. It's one thing to reject it. It's another thing to kind of just say, okay, whatever, I'll just quietly accept their votes. She said publicly she is proud to accept the endorsement of the war criminal. And if you ever needed any indication that the Democrat Party is now the neocon party, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I'm really just curious what Destiny would say if, for instance, Adolf Hitler, I guess in this case, right, like was brought up in the interview, the KKK came out and endorsed Trump, and the response of Trump was, "I'm honored to have their endorsement. They are well respected, and I share more in common with the KKK than what separates us." Okay, if that happened, what would Destiny be saying? What would everybody be saying? Same exact logic here with Dick Cheney and the war criminal, okay?
With that, right?
No,
if somebody endorses you, doesn't mean you support.
Sorry, no, I would say, no, if the KKK want to endorse me, I will publicly denounce that endorsement and say I want nothing to do with it. That is called being a civilized human being. You appear, Destiny, correct me if I'm wrong, to be of the view that literally any endorsement that helps you win power is absolutely fine, even if they're genocidal maniacs.
Correct.
I don't know if I would consider Dick Cheney to be a genocidal maniac.
He was literally called that.
Vote for you,
he's literally was called that when they called him Darth
If somebody
Cheney.
wants to vote for you, this is an absurd standard. If somebody wants to vote for you, then allow them to vote for you. If their fans want to vote for you, then allow them to vote for you. Why would you sit here and fight against an endorsement for a vote?
Well, okay, let me go to some.
Again, that's one thing, Destiny. I'm actually giving you that ground. But she didn't just do that. Once again, okay, we brought the receipts. Fact check, buddy. She said she proudly accepts it. She's honored to accept the endorsement. She said they're well respected. And she said she shares more in common with Dick Cheney than what separates her. That's what she said. Okay? So let's be clear about that, Mr. Tough Guy.
Somebody who actually
Absolute nonsense.
Okay, well, I don't agree with you. I think you've just discovered you've opened a can of worms and you can't work out a way to get out of it. Let me bring in Jill. Jill Steiner. I mean, Jill, if you got an endorsement from Dick Cheney or the Ku Klux Klan or Vladimir Putin, a public endorsement, what would your reaction be?
I would publicly reject it, but let me say, I think more important than the endorsement is the fact that the policies of Dick Cheney, you know, his neocon approach to our foreign policy, his endless war machine, you know, his very hostile, you know, it's like fight first and ask questions later. I think that's the core of the problem right here, is that the Democrats have very much adopted the agenda of Dick Cheney.
Well, make no mistake about it, Jill Stein. You don't have to worry about that because she said that. She said, well, I share more in common in the values of Dick Cheney than not. Well, there you go. There you go, right?
And the Republican war machine. That is the more critical problem here than the endorsements. But yes, absolutely, I would certainly reject those endorsements.
I mean, we've got a picture.
But the real problem here is...
Yeah, and I'll say this here, folks. There's a reason why Democrats are not rushing to reject the endorsement of Dick Cheney. And it's far from just the practicality of trying to win the election. No, it is because they now share the same values. Again, what do Kamala Harris and Dick Cheney share in common? They are both neocons.
Maybe you haven't checked your phone today to see that Dick Cheney and his horrible daughter have endorsed Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney. Now, why is that? What does Dick Cheney have in common with Kamala Harris? And it's really interesting, actually, because they're constantly telling us that the divides are along race and gender. And they were always telling us Dick Cheney is this rich white guy, and Kamala Harris is this oppressed woman of color. They've got nothing in common. But actually, they have everything in common. Because they're both neocons. That's exactly right. They have everything in common. And it tells you what...
So there you have it. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on this unhinged and disprovable take from Destiny. What do you think of the interview? What do you think of the Dick Cheney endorsement? Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.